Who do you think Arnold is?
Well, I've got a theory. Could be Bernard, a robot Bernard. No, something isn't right there. I've got a theory. Could be Dolores. He hid himself inside a massive robot mind. Yes, I've got a theory. We should podcast fast. Every week, a new hot take. We cannot take them back.
That's right. Hot takes, hot theories, and hot faces of dudes. What it do? This is Westworld Theories. I fell back into a Jim and them mode for a moment there. I apologize, but welcome to Westworld Theories. We are talking Westworld.
Yes, and it's so hot, you're just going to be babbling in the sun after we're done with you. Maybe that's what we're doing. Pretty much, we're just out there saying, oh, this is the wrong world. This is the world. Where's the door? All this stuff and more in this week's coverage of episode 8 of season 2 of Westworld. One review calls it the series' most beautiful chapter so far. That's in The Guardian. And The Independent says it felt like an optional DLC. And so it seems a bit divisive. Mostly, I've heard people be very positive about this episode, the Ghost Nation episode, as we suspected it would be, and indeed it was. What is your take on it? Your hot take? Jim Scampoli. I'm Jacob Burrows. Did I say that? I think so.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think I made a big mistake. I should have just watched this episode when it aired because I heard mostly positive, and maybe that was to the detriment, and I got like my hopes up a little bit. Yeah, a lot of people say I heard people say potentially best episode of the series. And I don't know. I can't blame the episode for this. I guess I got caught up in it, so I was pretty excited to watch it. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, it's okay. I mean, I don't feel like it was that much different than this season. People have been fairly down on this season of Westworld. And I mean, I guess this kind of gave us allusions to answers, but not very satisfactory answers, in my opinion.
Okay. I think that's fair because I was kind of surprised that people being positive, which is not to say I didn't like the episode, but I've heard people be, as you said, fairly down on this season, while I've been over here like, yeah, it's Westworld. We're in the middle of the season, and you're expecting what exactly? So this episode, I mean, it's certainly different. I think people were reacted to something a bit different. It's not as ambiguous as it might, often go, where it's just riddles in the dark for episodes and episodes. This is more clearly the story of one character, basically, and how he became who he is. And I think people responded well to that amid all the confusion. Although I also, it's definitely not my favorite episode of the series. I liked, for example, episode 4 of this season better. For me, it was very much the Ghost Nation episode, so it was kind of as expected. But I'll say the bits and pieces they filled in were still interesting and satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't want to say it's a bad episode because I mean it was interesting. I like the actor. I don't have his name in front of me. I apologize. He was in Fargo season 2, and he's pretty great. But now my question is: so what? You look at this maze and it sets you down the path of enlightenment or wokeness? Is that what we're picking up from this?
Yeah, I also sort of wondered about that, and it does. This episode does make it seem like when you're working in this place, the Mesa, every robot is just 1 inch away from just getting up and walking around, and maybe they're used to it actually. But yeah,
Don't even get me started on that whole sequence. But yeah, we'll get there. But the way it played out, it just seemed like he was showing people the maze, and that was like the start. But wasn't the maze on things like someone had a branding, like someone had some cowboys had a brander that had the maze on it, or it was on like a tarot card or something like that. So people have seen this maze.
yes, and you're right. It is like it feels like this is not what the maze was before, or was it? I don't know because the feeling we got from season 1, I think, was that the maze was something that Arnold was kind of obsessed with, and he put it into his thing like an Easter egg, and that's as far as I remember, and I could be wrong, but that's why it was appearing here and there. He put it in the code, and it was obviously connected to becoming aware as well. It was like kept being repeated, but my memory was not as clear that like, oh, you see this and you start getting woke.
Yeah, I mean, I had to kind of refresh myself a little bit after this episode, and I was reminded that like it's a kids game, but the maze is supposed to be, because they were like, what did Arnold say? It was something around along the lines of we kept trying to get the hosts to seek outwards to kind of find themselves, and we realized they had to go through the maze to look inward, and it was like the path to consciousness. And I know it was important to Dolores, and like how Dolores became the person that could kill Arnold, and of course that all comes into play in this episode because we do see, what was this character's name? Aki?
Akecha? I don't know.
Ake? Yeah.
Akechita. I'm sorry. I think that's his name. We're in his perspective most of the time, so it's not like they're yelling his name. But yeah, it's Akechita.
Yeah, I know some people call him Ake, but either way. But yeah, so he stumbles upon it, sees the maze, and he starts telling everyone about the maze, and this is their way of explaining how the maze got on the scalp. uh
Yeah, which is they do this. I mean, this is a nitpick, but like they do this to hide it, like you wouldn't react if a body comes in and they've, I don't know, tried to reattach his scalp to hide it from the techs, like they wouldn't notice when they were putting him back together. I thought, I mean, that was not necessarily disappointing, but I thought it was really cool that Arnold programmed it in secretly so it appeared in all sorts of weird places, like in their scalps. But now it's like, oh, that they just carved it, they just put it there themselves.
yeah, they put it there, and then the butchers, apparently they like, one thing I guess that's been answered is that the Delos company, there's a reason why they're rich. They're reusing parts like none other. They're not just making new skin. They're looking at it like, oh man, what's up with this scalp? Let's get a maze on it. Whatever. Sew it back on, send it back out. There's no need to do anything here. But yeah, I mean, it was just a weird little, well, not little detail. I mean, it's been something that's been driving the show, and they even, I liked their more flippant view of it at the beginning of this season when they're just looking at it and like, whatever, stupid maze, who cares?
Yeah.
But now when they are back to adding more meaning to it, it is kind of like, I don't know about this.
But doesn't it add up? Because we thought, it was something about violent delights. You say the secret code phrase about violent delights, and that sets you off. But actually, Dolores heard that and it started setting her off, and we know she saw the maze before then. Maeve saw the maze because Ake showed up and put it outside her little homestead to wake her and the girl up. So they've both seen the maze, and the Ghost Nation have seen it. And I don't know, do we even have any other woke-ish hosts?
I mean, that's the thing is, not only did we think, that's my Alexa's listening in on
Yeah, they're trying to take over, Jim. Trying to take over our show. These fucking robots.
well, the thing is, not only did we think that these violent delights was part of the path to wokeness, the creators thought that. It's just they decided to think something else here in season 2, because they do show us a scene where she says it to Maeve, but now it's kind of like, well, I mean, I guess the maze was are always a thing outside her house, just as like a nice mysterious thing they had. I guess it's just, this is an answer. It just doesn't quite fully add up. I feel like they had the basis of this idea. Like they knew that the Ghost Nation was involved somehow. I just don't know if I fully buy that this was always the plan, I'd say.
I think that's fair. I also think, I don't think there's, I think it probably adds up, I guess, but I feel like if this was the thing, they should have given us that last season when we cared about the maze. They should have gone like, bam, well, I made it so your brain starts working again. Like, put Arnold in a flashback, like, look at this fucking shit, look at this thing. And then, like, your brain's gonna go all crazy, man. I made this thing. Because that's what he did, and that's what last season was about, and nothing in this season is about that. This season is about a Robot Wars, not the other show, Robot Wars. This is about, our new Westworld Robot Wars, and so it is a bit weird to go into that, but I guess, yeah, we didn't know anything about the Ghost Nation or this character, and that was an important part of them.
Well, and I guess it's just the combination of not only kind of that being this maze thing kind of being, I don't want to say a letdown because I'm not that negative about it. It's fine. I think your point is more correct that it just feels a little late. If this was in last season, maybe it probably would have hit harder. But then they also, I feel like they completely deflate the door because Ford, like he goes up to Ford, mentions the door, and Ford's like, the door. I
I
like the
like the
sound of
sound
that.
of that.
So it really is no, I guess Ford added some meaning to it, but really it's not much meaning there. It's not really a big thing.
Hmm. Well, I mean, it's literally a door. That was another review I saw. Like, oh, we find out what the door is. Spoiler alert: it's a door. And again, we don't really know what's on the other side of the door because it seems like it would just be a door to get out of there. But they're building it up like it's a reveal, so it's probably a door to the moon. Like, come on, let's be serious. It's probably the moon.
Well, I
Um,
guess, if they build it up where, yeah, for us, the audience, the door is a reveal to where Westworld is or what the outside world is like, that's fine. My only problem is that it doesn't wash really that Ford decides to add this to his narrative to entice the man in black based off of the ramblings of a confused host. Not confused as in like the other host, like he's self-aware, but he's not fully self-aware of what's going on. Like the door to him is just literally the door to get out of Westworld because he knows it's a fake place, but he doesn't know to the extent of
yeah.
how fake it is. But
Yes.
but then the connection of that to the way they string us along with the man in black, that's where I kind of am like, all right, this is just what are they doing here?
Well, here's my thinking, and it's a bit out there, but Ford doesn't really care about the human being, the Man in Black. He cares about his robot revolution. So the only reason he's doing all this stuff with the Man in Black is that the Man in Black is a hybrid, and he's gradually becoming aware of this, or he will come to that realization after he's realized that there's no difference between hosts and humans. He's going to be the first stable hybrid. That's why he's part of Ford's plan. And speaking of Ford's plan, I saw someone on Reddit, Justafucks, put out the. I mean, it's not really a unique thought, but they put words to the thing that Akecheta was probably the inspiration for Ford's whole plan because, as we know, Ford thought, oh, they're just robots. This is silly. But Akecheta was someone who just gradually started getting more conscious, and he was watching him and sort of getting this inspiration for a decade. Yeah, I think it maybe convinced him that he was wrong and that Arnold was right. Because I mean, what was Dolores doing that time? She wasn't doing nothing. So Akecheta is the original woke host, maybe.
Yeah, it's just I feel like that's probably what the show's saying, but I don't feel like they do a good job at doing that because you can also read that scene as Ford like on the spot, like when he's like, well, maybe when the Deathbringer comes for me, you can do a thing. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like he set up this meeting to put forth the next step of his plan. It seems like an afterthought when he finally like talks to him there. So I guess you could read it either way, but I don't feel like they did a good enough job of really laying that out as the like as what's going on.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's fair. But it does what one of the most interesting things is that it seems like the longer you just don't die, the more woke you can get.
True, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they give like they're I love the scene where they're like, wait, when was he last updated? Like literally a decade ago. He just hasn't died for a decade. How is that even possible? And then someone else actually connected that thought. I don't remember who, but with the fact that we see a lot of children saying all sorts of weird shit about this world being strange or whatnot, and we thought, that was just Ford speaking through the children as he's wont to do, and probably there was part of that. But there is a possibility that the children have more of an opportunity to wake up a bit because they don't die as often. They're in the family-friendly portions of the park.
Oh yeah, I think that is a good point. I guess I wish maybe in that scene when they realize he hasn't died for so long that maybe, I mean, I can know they saved the Ford reveal for later, but if Ford was the one that's like just put him back out there, it would have made more sense to me. As
Yeah.
is, it's just like, is the lady doing that because she thinks she's going to get in trouble, or is it laziness? Like, why is it that she's like, just put him back out there, well, just update him, get him out of here? Alpha 2,
Yeah.
you say? Like, I don't know. It didn't. I guess that's the point of Westworld, is that things are supposed to be pretty ambiguous. But it was almost too ambiguous of this character that, am I supposed to know who she is? Clearly, it's someone from early days in the park, but I don't know.
Yeah. I think they just put in someone new to show that we're in a mid-range section of the park timeline where we haven't really hung out before. We've been at the start. We've been before the start. We've been around the start where William's there, and the present, and we haven't seen much of the middle. And since they do give us the decade thing, it seems like, yeah, he's it's like 10 years after the park started, or something like that. So they have to put some other character in there because they're not hosts,
Well, it's just
supposedly.
weird because usually it's like we've seen. I mean, we even kind of see in this episode when they take his wife or what have you, and then she gets stowed away in the like broken host room. And I mean, we saw in season one, once like Abernathy started acting up, they're like, put him in the broken host room.
Yeah.
I just didn't quite get. I mean, I guess what they were going for is that she thought that it would be like more trouble than it's worth, I suppose, to try to explain where this host was instead of just dumping him off in the broken host room.
Well, he
And
wasn't really broken though. I mean, oh, sorry, sorry to cut you off, but I mean, he just died in a regular way after a decade. I would just say it would be kind of like someone coming in with, I don't know, a Walkman to get it repaired at the at the
so
Apple
then
store.
why was his wife stowed away? Because she got so far away?
I think so.
Well, then either way, at the very least, if this host, if someone was like, this host this is host is Alpha 2 or whatever, and has been alive for 10 years, wouldn't it be like, hey, study this brain chip? Let's look what's going on. How did this host last so long? What's going on here?
Yeah, but you got to clock out at some point, Jim. Like, you got to get home. Like, do you really give that much of a shit at your job? I know I don't.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure how to read it. I mean, I guess the most way to read it is that, yeah, it was not wanting to deal with it, I guess, or maybe potentially getting in some sort of trouble because this host has been out there for so long. I don't know.
Yeah, because it is, old. Like, as we can see in this episode, it's old, unsafe technology that might pick up some weird bugs. Just update him and get him out of there. Of course, I guess it's all wireless, so they don't notice when he just steps out of there. Oh, you want to watch him? No, he'll just walk around there. And I'm sure they probably have cameras. And I'll even say that this is probably part of Ford, sort of watching him more carefully since he starts walking around, because I don't believe that
I
wasn't caught
hated
by anyone.
I
Why?
hated that he's just roaming around, roaming all around the goddamn Westworld back offices. We dealt with the same thing last year with Maeve. People just roam around and no one cares. No one cares. No one notices the native man who's walking around behind the scenes, or they're just every hallway's empty.
Yeah, I didn't mind it as much as you, partly because he's going like down to the even lower levels where it's all deserted, and then he just goes back up to where he was. But
But
I see
also,
where you're coming from.
yeah, because it's like, what am I supposed to think he knows exactly where to go? He's not roaming around a little bit figuring out. He knows the exact way to go to get to the underground dead host storage room.
Well, that's fair. That is fair. So we haven't really gone through like the details of the episode. I mean, in order. I don't think we need to, but I will mention that it starts with the Man in Black having survived, proving that he is not human, because what the fuck. And he gets. I say that as a joke, and I'm not completely serious, but I also feel like, of course, this show would do that. Like, why would he be human at this point?
Well, plus all he needs is just a bowl of water to
Yeah.
get up and running. I don't know why they didn't give Maeve a bowl of water to get her going. But yes, so the Man in Black, he's picked up by the Ghost Nation. Now, weirdly enough, the one question I was hoping we'd get answered, we don't get answered, is what the Ghost Nation are doing with people.
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
they
that is
well, go
true.
ahead. Well,
No, I
because
was
they
just gonna say it's true because they do get people and they don't kill people, but he says to the man in black anyway that death is too good for you, you bastard. But I don't think they think that about everyone, so I would assume that they're gathering humans to get info about the door. But then we've seen them do the whole catch and release thing with Stubbs, so I don't know.
yeah, death is a passage that you don't deserve. He says something along those lines.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, then Maeve's daughter's there, and she remembers, I guess, because she looked at the maze once. So
Although, yeah, I mean, Ake comes up to her and says like, "Oh, you can remember all the things you've seen, can't you?" And someone made a point. Does she nod at that point? I don't think so, because he says like, "Oh, all the lives we've lived and all of that stuff." I think that someone else pointed out ismist on Reddit. Akechida was probably having the entire conversation with Maeve, not with the daughter, because we see at the end that she is still communicating. She is talking to Akechida basically.
mhm.
So the daughter does not need to be as woke. I mean, it does. You do think, obviously, through the episode, I guess she understands this language, but the possibility is that he's just saying it in his language. And when he's saying remember all the lives, he's saying it to Maeve, who does
Yeah,
remember and who does speak every language, has a built in Google Translate. And what do you think about that?
yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. Although I do think, I mean, I guess it could all just be because they're cheating us. But I mean, because it does, I guess those memories they show could be Maeve's memories as well. I'm trying to think if there's any memories that seem to be just the daughter by herself. But then again, I guess those could be Ake's memories because I mean, there's the one when she helps him.
Yeah.
So I guess that works. I'd have to go back and rewatch it just to be 100%, but that's probably what they were going for. Um, and yeah, I guess going back, so yeah, because the Man in Black, his initial quote to Teddy back in the day was that the maze revealed itself to him when he killed Maeve and her daughter. So that's yeah, when he saw it outside the house or whatever, um, in the soil. But then again, Teddy talks about the maze. Like Teddy knows about the maze, and he's not woke at all.
You mean now, or did he know about it in season one?
Season one, like Teddy tells the Man in Black the maze is the sum of a man's life. According to myth, there's a man in the center who has been killed many times, but always came back to life. Supposedly returned one last time to defeat his enemies and built the maze around his house to keep them out.
That all sounds like some real season one shit that it's like, oh yeah, that was really important at that point. I don't
Yeah.
even remember who the man in the middle who built the house was. Was it Arnold who's building his little house? He only died once, so I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're supposed to think it was Dolores, maybe, but
Uh,
I
mm.
mean, you're right. It's season one shit.
Because I mean, yes, and they do say, they do seem to imply, hey, just don't die for a long time and you'll get a bit more woke as long as you've seen the symbol. At the same time, we know that consciousness comes through suffering. That was at least the thesis that Ford came up with. That's why Dolores had to go through so much shit to get where she's at. So, which one is it? Just a bit of that, bit of this, bit of that? And is every single host just inches away from getting up off that table?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they are, and you could just explain that away as Arnold, and then later on Ford, and what Ford has been because he's pushing towards this robot uprising. But I mean, I guess I do like how if it does come down to the maze, Ake's story obviously mirrors Maeve's story because it is more about this connection, this love that they have for another host or another being, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what drives them to what is supposed to be their own free will. I mean, it's still, I guess I'm just such a cynic. I still don't buy it, even though I think the creators are completely saying it is. And I guess it makes sense because it's, would be quote more human this bond or this love they have for another being.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, speaking of Maeve, say what you will about Ake, I feel his story is a lot of what we just expected, but still, in this episode, he easily becomes, to me, the most relatable host character. Because, it's not Dolores at this point. uh, which is a bit sad. We were really with Dolores there in season 1, and maybe she'll win us back or win me back. I'll speak for myself. But she's doing her psychopath thing, and she doesn't have one consistent character because her different personalities have blended together into something new that changes Teddy and does whatever. And Maeve, of course, there's likable traits to her, but she's so overpowered with her controlling thing. Plus, she really cares about her daughter that we don't care that much about. And Ake, on the other hand, finds this symbol and he's like, I have to spread the truth to everyone. And he's a bit of a weirdo in his clan and all that. And he loses his wife. And I liked the moment when he realized this is not just about me. This is about all of us, which felt like a combination of Maeve and Dolores. So I guess I'm Team Ghost Nation.
Well, and I guess it makes sense in a weird way though, because they explain it in a similar fashion of like, the typical robot of like, I wanted to build the perfect robot to protect humanity, and then the robot's like, I have to destroy humanity to protect humanity, and it's like, oh no, because he does say like, I'm programmed to help my tribe or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, but the way around it is like, I've discovered a new tribe, like basically all hosts. And you can blame Dolores's things on is that she has the who is that crazy character that they put in her? I can't think of it offhand. Wyatt, yeah, because she's got the Wyatt, she's got Dolores, and God knows what else in her head. So it throws her for a loop where she has all this extra aggression and whatnot. I mean, given Ake has the more savage programmed aggression version of himself there, but the other side is winning out. And it is always, I guess, laziness that it comes down to, because even when they're like, they want to make them more aggressive, they want to change them up, and they're like, oh, you know how long it's going to take to do that? And it's like, we'll just leave all the other shit in. And they're like, all right, that's a good idea.
Yeah, just up his aggression or whatever and give him the patterns. So you're right. Everyone just wants to clock out and get out of there. Get on the next shuttle back to Earth, if you know what I'm saying.
From the moon. Or from from underwater. They're clearly underwater.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I say the moon. The moon is more representative for me of just whatever fucking thing they're gonna do. I don't know if they're actually on the moon. Probably not, and it's mainly a joke. But it's also like just a way for me to encapsulate that they're gonna do some fucking thing. Okay.
They're at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, and what they're gonna do is they're gonna open the door. All the water's gonna come in, and then Ake is gonna swim to the top.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let's write that fanfic real quick.
But yeah, so I'm still like, even the Man in Black, like, what was his plan? He was gonna crawl to the door, because we open, he's just crawling, gets picked up at the Ghost Nation, and I assume they're gonna help him, but he's just sitting there like slowly dying the whole episode until his daughter comes to get him.
Yeah, I mean, he's just part of the PowerPoint that Ike is giving to Maeve's daughter / Maeve. He's just like, oh, him over there, he's a real bastard. Because he does say, that's death's too good for him and so on and all of that. But yeah, I mean, most of this episode is just inside this story, right? We do get...
yeah, it's mostly inside the story. And plus the door, not only did it just come from Ake, it came from Logan. Logan came up with this mysterious door we've been, discussing and wondering this whole time. It was just the ramblings of a naked man.
Yep. Team Logan. So nice to see him in his natural habitat, babbling in the desert. But there is one other thing going on with Maeve, where Lee is there and he wants to get the code out of there, or he tries to convince this butcher to get the code out of her brain so they can maybe use it to control hosts, because no one else can control hosts, and they get the code snippet out of there. And it does seem like maybe that's what will be used to get all the hosts to go and drown themselves. We know Bernard blames himself for that, but who knows if he actually has a connection to it. It seems like this controlling code is now out there, and it is in the hands of Delos, basically.
Yeah, is Lee the writer?
Yeah, Lee's the writer. What did you think of his part?
I didn't know how to read what was going on, because it seemed like sometimes it was all about like, we need this tech, like we need this code because what she can do. But then sometimes he was kind of like, you're so great, Maeve. You deserve better than this. Like what is that?
Yeah, no, that's I've seen people like praising his performance and like, oh, this character is really growing on me. And I'm like, what? He is? Because I don't think anything he does is unreasonable up to this point. But as you said, he comes in, and I was taken aback by the scene because he's there crying and saying how she deserves better and all that. That's why we spent so much time in Shogun World and everything. I guess it all comes down to this. They've grown closer, and I buy that to an extent that I guess I buy that to an extent, but I didn't blame him at all when he was like, let's get the human team in here. Team human all the way. So when he's here all crying, I mean, I guess it is fucked up when you hang out with someone for a week and then you see their skin all torn up and gone, and he's a writer. He's probably never even been in the park. He doesn't understand shit, and she is conscious. I mean, she is like a person, so it's a bit fucked up. But yeah, I didn't really it didn't affect me at all when he's sitting there blubbering about it.
Well, I just didn't know which was the real one. I guess you can assume that he does really care for Maeve, but he just knows to sell it to the Westworld higher ups as the code is important, but he feels she's important.
I guess it's he wants people to stop getting killed, so that's part of it probably. But he also doesn't want Maeve to get like he doesn't want host or human to be killed. At least a host that he has talked to and cares a bit about. Could be both.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I didn't really buy any of it because I didn't see enough. Like if this was Felix or something, I guess I would understand because Felix would be blubbering like,
Of
"Babe, you're so
course.
great," even though he just like ran away. Apparently,
Yeah,
if you haven't seen him since he was
since
like, "We
gone.
need to help them."
Yep.
But yeah, I guess I just didn't fully get a read on it because yeah, he was the one that called the people and basically caused all this. But whatever. And they do say, wait, what was it? What are my notes here? Something. Oh, when he said, yeah, it's probably just a off nothing line, but who
Mm-hmm.
knows? When this is changing gears a little bit, when Ake goes back to his tribe and he mentions, "I found your son," he said something about like closing a door and opening a new door, and I was like, did he say door? Because as
Yes.
we know on Westworld, doors are important.
Well, do you watch with the subtitles? Well, obviously you watched that part with the subtitles, but was it capitalized? That is the question.
Oh no, I
Uh,
don't usually watch with subtitles.
well, you did in this episode because
Yeah,
there's
of
a lot of
course.
subs needed. Um, but yes, I mean, we've basically gone over the episode. Is there anything else that sticks out to you or anything in your notes? I mean, the reason every other episode is so weird is that there's so many bits and pieces, and the reason this sticks out is, oh, you just told the story, and even though it didn't blow me away, I still was on board with the story, mostly.
Yeah, I mean, it was just I feel like they're playing fast and loose with how hosts can get woke, basically. Like he said like two things to his wife, and she remembered who he was. She was afraid for her life 1 second, then she knew who she was. Then I guess the elder of the tribes remembered her son and all that. So I guess that was due to not being murdered that many times and seeing the maze.
Yeah, I guess they've seen the maze. There was one thing I remembered that, when they're looking for the door, when he's going with his wife, they get picked up by, or yeah, the techs come along like they do. And I was like, surely you have tracking technology? Like, surely? Like, wasn't there something in season one about we need to find this host, but then, oh, the tracking's like, how do you have tracking technology? There's no way you don't put a GPS in your hosts. So I don't understand how they're there and they're like, yep, we got them, all the hosts in this region. Like, you didn't like bleep it around again. Like Kristen said in the chat, does it all just come down to laziness? Like Kristen wrote, oh, just update them when they die, I guess. No other reason to do any updates. And like, oh, we just out of sight, out of mind. There's no other hosts here.
Well, and then even like, I mean, I guess this could be chalked up to Maeve getting more powerful. When they talked about this mesh network, they talked about it more as kind of like a short range thing. But now she's talking to someone presumably pretty far away
That's
and
true.
having a conversation. But again, I mean, you could just chalk that up. She's getting new unlocks and upping her HP at many points throughout the season, where
Yeah.
now she can reach further and further. But I guess, I mean, I guess that network, this Wi-Fi network, that's the weapon. It would have to be, right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we talked about the weapon being the information, the DNA, and all that, but I don't even know at this point. You're right. I mean, it does seem likely, but then they had this control over hosts originally, so going to get a weapon. I mean, Dolores is going for the weapon, and she's going to use it to destroy the people outside of Westworld. So I don't know how that's going to work.
And then where he saw the door, that isn't the same valley that we had seen previously, like any connection to the weapon they spoke of, correct?
I don't know. I kind of assumed it was. I didn't
I
like.
Yeah, because it just looked similar to where those machines were.
Yeah.
Where in the early in the season when like Dolores saw the weapon and they were showing something being dug out or built or whatever it was, it looked similar, but I didn't fully compare them to see if that's where he was.
Yeah, I mean, someone's got to have screenshots, right? It was just line them up and like, oh, the mountains in the background. I just assumed it was because they showed that stuff, and it did remind me of when William was like, Dolores, young William was like, Dolores, let me show you this thing. So yes, probably, and we
And
still don't know what the door is.
back to what you were talking about, like with it seems like it's be like a crazy theory, but totally in the realm of the show. When you're talking about the Man in Black being some sort of hybrid, it would make sense that he would be like the next iteration of what they were trying to do with Delos, or
Yeah.
whatever, because William would be that person next in line, at least from what we know as far as the company side of things are concerned. So, yeah, that's probably exactly what happened.
Yes. And then when was he replaced? When was he not replaced? Is there another William running around or did he die? Are we going to have two Williams at the end of this season? Not like we thought at last season when it would be young and old William. Are we going to have two old Williams duking it out? Who knows? Speaking of him, he has a daughter who shows up at the end. Like we called, of course, his daughter is going to pick him up. And she comes and asks the questions we were asking, like, why are you healing him then? Even though it's like some water or whatever. He's like, why are you healing them? And Ake says, I want him to hurt. And she says that they want the same thing and that her way is going to be much, much worse, which is a bit in contrast to, I believe she was, putting on a sob story of like, let's be a real good family again. Come along with me.
Maybe that's how she's gonna hurt him. Take him out of Westworld. Take him off the moon.
Yeah. Could be. I mean, I guess I believe it though, which makes it seem like okay. So how are you gonna hurt him by revealing he's a hybrid?
I didn't see the next on Westworld, but I did see a headline that it does appear that it could be an All Man in Black episode next week for the penultimate episode as we head towards the finale, episode 10.
Oh yeah, 10 episodes. I forgot. That's
Yeah,
cool. We're pretty close now, and we there's often in shows we discuss. There's an episode towards the end of a season that's like, oh, what were they doing there? They really went off on a tangent there. And even though they do that here, I didn't feel like it. I don't know.
well, I mean, because they were at least wrapping up some things. I don't feel like the answer for the maze was that satisfactory, but I can't take it away from it. It was an answer. So, hey, I got to go with it. I'll go with it. So it did feel like it was its own side story, but it was filling in some gaps from what we previously knew about Westworld and some of the things that are happening now. So it was a well done episode. I feel like I just maybe got a little bit overhyped for it before I watched it.
Yes, and I didn't hear any of that, so I just went into thinking it was a Ghost Nation episode, and it certainly was. Now, if you want to share your thoughts on this episode, please do send an email to showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. Maybe discussing this episode or the next episode, and we'll include it in our next discussion. You can, of course, find every episode of Westworld Theories, as well as Gilead Gazette, where we discuss The Handmaid's Tale, and a number of other podcasts on showswhatyouknow.com or your podcast app of choice.
I do have one last thing to say.
Oh, what could that possibly be?
We live in the wrong world.